the decisions right in the middle of the decision making. It's a tough task. It's actually a pretty thankless task because there aren't any great answers. There aren't any great answers on this, except we have to do something. That is the only answer. We have to do something. Otherwise, we're just not providing the kind of education that we could. And so the board put together a policy. We are following that policy carefully about how to go about this. We looked at all the schools, a committee within the district made up of experts among the different programs in the district, identified 7 schools that were what we call viable options for closure. And we are now in a process of further studying what to do. Further studying all of these schools, and there's a lot of material up on our website, and we'll continue to add more data and information on that, but it spells out what that further study looks like. In November, there are 2 opportunities for the public to talk with the board directly and provide public comment during a board meeting. There'll be a public hearing in December as well to hear from the community. We've also got 5 area information meetings set up so that people can come and express their views and ask questions. And then also a small team within the district is going to each school individually to meet with their school community councils. So we have that ahead. But even as we are looking to close schools, we're looking to open new programs for our students. We are looking to open college pathways. We are looking to open career pathways. We are looking to double down on reading as our initiative. And there's, I wanted to show you one more thing, just because I had the experience today to go to Highland High School and meet with the student body officers and talk with them. So you've heard the term, I think, social emotional learning, that we're trying to teach skills to manage through life, manage themselves, manage in relationships, manage through what has become a complicated world. As part of that initiative, which has long been a board priority in our district, we are going to work this year on raising the level of our interactions as human beings. You know, and I know that our public discourse is ugly, and that has filtered into our schools, where the use of racial slurs, where harassment and bullying have become much too common for our community. And in the coming months, we want to roll out a campaign that asks more of our community, and I mean the community broadly, within our school district and within Salt Lake City as a whole. And I had a chance to talk with the mayor, and you're probably familiar with it too, I'm sure, Dan. The Dignity Index, which is a little bit of a homegrown product. I encourage you to look up on the website, the Dignity Index. Tammy Piper, who had worked for Governor Herbert years ago as her education lead, helped create this along with some other national figures. And what it does is it looks at the quality of our speech with each other, particularly political speech, and ranks it from a 1 to an 8, where a 1 means we're treating each other with contempt, and an 8 means we're treating each other with dignity. And our expectation will be in the Salt Lake City School District that we treat each other with dignity, even as we disagree. And on the back of this card it says how to disagree with dignity, which is part of what Governor Herb Cox is trying to do with his Disagree Better initiative with the National Governors Association. First Lady Abby Cox is working on this with Unified Sports that brings kids who are disabled together with kids who are able and puts them together in a team to compete against other teams. There are a lot of things happening that encourage us to see each other as human beings, and I encourage you to look this up and even use this language around the idea that we will treat each other with dignity because everybody has value and worth, no matter what, in our discourse with each other. And so we're going to set that expectation in our schools and in our interactions with each other as adults as well as students to adults. So just wanted to share that because I had the chance to talk to these school students today at Highland who were really quite excited about this and had lots of ideas about how they could roll it out in their school and make it work with some of the work they're doing that is just about treating each other well and being kind. And so it was fun to talk with them about that. But I am happy to answer questions or hear your thoughts or comments. Yep.
Question. Raise your hand, go ahead. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah.
Oh, one question I had is
Yeah.
and I genuinely want to understand it. Our population is apparently exploding and
Yeah.
population density or housing density is the only solution. We're building apartments on every bare patch we can in the city.
We are.
And at the same time, we're being told there are no children enrolling in school. So you said that the number of children enrolled in the district has declined by like half over that period of time, whatever the number.
Oh, yeah, that's over a long period.
But have the actual numbers of children declined?
Yeah.
Or is it just people not enrolling in public schools?
Do you know, oddly, Salt Lake City is aging. The average age is growing and is increasing.
Yeah. So all these people that are coming here are elderly. Yeah.
The family size right now, we've done it with three, where we talked about the dignity, is at under 3 right now, and by like 20 years, it's going to be at like 2.5. And a majority of families, more than half of the families, I say families are not going to have kids, so couples are going to be living without any kids.
But what are the question I asked though is what number of children in Salt Lake, school age children, because we've seen a huge sharp decline since COVID, obviously. Has the number of children at school age declined that much that we are shuttering, or is it? So who's moving here?
People without kids.
People without kids.
Even the housing units that are built, most of them are 1 and 2 bedroom rather than perhaps a 3-bedroom that, in fact, our team spoke with the city planners just this last week and.
Part of our initiative is to also build affordable family housing. And, we talk to developers and they, they'll have 100, I'm just using the number, 100 unit house, 100 unit apartment. They can't house, and build a 4-bedroom or 3-bedroom because there's just kind of families who take that. So they only have a very small percentage of that because there's not families that large enough to take those places anymore. So we want to increase our family housing and affordable family housing, but there's also not
There's no families.
there's not a market.
Keep rolling, thank you, Dan, for filling the blank, but, so Carly, go ahead and then we're in the room. Okay.
So this is a good point to speaking of. So there's so you have I would say it comes in waves. So there's a lot of young people coming in. So I think in the future there will be more kids, but not what it was. But my comment on this and this question is if you get this number of schools down and you control that expense, wouldn't less kids per family actually be more money per kid in the schools? Because you have a greater tax base and you're not, if I'm paying taxes and I have 4 kids in the school system and now I have 2, you would think there was more money.
But has property values soaring and
but had tax base kept up. That's good. That's
So
what
there
I'm
are
asking.
2 sources of funds. One, we get funds from the state that's based on how many students we have. So per student,
So
per
it's
pupil.
flat. And it's gone up with inflation and
Almost, not quite. It's well, it's a 5-year measure, it's lagging inflation right now. I mean, so we'll be pressing the legislature to try and up that amount. There's also property tax. Salt Lake City is not wanting for property tax, but it means we raise your taxes. So the school board raises your taxes to take that in. Now, the advantage for Salt Lake is that we have so much business that the burden on families for that raise in money is less than maybe other places that don't have around Utah. You go out a little further south in the valley and there's not as much industry and business. And so their ability to raise taxes rests more on families than on businesses than it does here in Salt Lake. So we do have that advantage.
We have about 3 more minutes, Carla.
I have, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I'm Harley. I came here tonight just to see you and I'm so grateful that you were here. We've been waiting a long time. I'm like, hopefully can stay. And equalize our school district. It's been a wild ride. We've got 4 kids.
Oh,
In public schools. It's
Uh-huh.
done very well, but
Good.
it's just exciting time here. So thank you. And you've got a huge set of obstacles in front of you. The most diverse school district in the state.
I believe so.
Yeah. By a lot. So going forward, I also just wanted your quick input on school climate and needs that you're forecasting. So
In
my
what way?
winter at West High,
Uh-huh.
the building is not safe. And just how you're trying to allocate all those different demands amongst all the levels.
Yeah, here's another conundrum on the financial piece. So our buildings are aging. School buildings last 60, 70 years. People predict we can keep remodeling inside for a little while, but it sort of runs its course. Wasatch Elementary has a plug on each wall in the classroom, so it has 4 plugs in an era when you need 4 plugs in a single box. To just even charge your device. So there are some infrastructure needs that way. West High is the oldest. There was a feasibility study done a little while ago about how much it would cost to rebuild West, and one about how much it would cost to rebuild Highland. The estimations are now at about $300 million a piece. What that means is that in order for us to do that, we would have to ask you for a bond. Our board is next week hearing from financial advisors about what it means to go out for a bond campaign. If the board chooses to do that, it would not be for another year. So high school rebuild, even if that money came in, high school would take, I don't know, that Skyline High School rebuild has been going on so long, it's hard to know, but our sense is 6 to 8 years. So even if we got the funding, started it, it wouldn't be rebuilt for another 8 to 10 years. West High wouldn't, but it is under consideration. So we've got this odd problem of closing some schools, but we need high schools that are safe and usable and good space for learning. And so bonding is probably where we will go.
Maybe one more question.
Yeah, I can talk to you later about this, but the taxpayers, our property tax paid with enormous cost at East High for those stormwater vaults.
For the stormwater vault,
Isn't
I'm
that true?
afraid I don't know a thing
They were
about
torn
that.
up all summer and they put in those big yellow balls. And the reason we had to do that is because Roland Hall refused or did not, or the city didn't hold them accountable to build what they had committed to do under their soccer field. They didn't build the ball. So the flooding that we've had at East High is attributable to the hardscape that
No, I
happened
didn't know that.
at Roland Hall.
Yeah.
And, you know, as a taxpayer, it's bad enough that they want us to pay, you know, they want to have vouchers, but come on. They didn't do what they were supposed to do, and now we had to pay for it.
I don't know that story, but I'm happy to put you
I'll
in touch
show you
with
the drawings.
people who can answer any questions on that. Luckily, there's a
Or somebody.
good team at the district, particularly in our buildings and grounds, who know those sorts of things and help us make those decisions. Yeah, I appreciate the time. Thank you. Thanks for allowing me to introduce myself. I should have shortened my introduction and
No,
increased the questions, but I will say that I'm accessible. My email is elizabeth.grant. It's the way we do just name, elizabeth.grant@slcschool.org. So feel free if you would like to send a note, and it's on the website and things, so you can find ways to do that. But I want you to know that I am your neighbor. I am living about over by Clayton, so not very far away. I grew up in Salt Lake. I went to Salt Lake City School District School. I went to the University of Utah, and and then taught in some places and returned, and then, with the principal here. So it's nice to have those kind of connections. It's been really fun, actually, to re-engage with people who I've worked with and I've known for years. And then, just, to understand the community that way.
Great.
So.
We are so grateful.
If you want to see, I'll leave it, everything of that with you if you want to go. I don't have very many other ones.
So I think we all agree we could have kept her for probably a couple of hours, right?
Yeah.
So Elizabeth, we're going, I know Dr. Grant's formal title, but Elizabeth, will you feel like a friend and a family friend? We hope that we'll have you come back, maybe at the end of this school year, and you can give us a recap.
That would be fun.
We'll have you back.
I would love to. I think it's gonna be a year.
Thank you so much again. Thank you. Okay, our good friend Cooper Barr, who is, crazy about birds, because she is an expert and from, conservation, director at Tracy Aviary. And she's got a few announcements for us and a few little finds, and I don't know, Eric, do we need to help her get the, little PowerPoint thing up?
Yeah, you want me to?
Yeah.
Or you can find it probably just pull down.
Here. Everyone on the line can see. Oh, there we go. Okay, so hello everyone. Yeah, like Jan said, my name is Cooper Carr. I'm the director of conservation at Sept Aviary. So we've been doing a project in Miller Park, Miller Bird Refuge, for about 3 years now, almost 3 years. And we have some sort of new and exciting opportunities for the community to get involved. So I just have a couple slides here to kind of talk about what we've been doing and invite everyone to join us. As part of my role at Tracy Aviary, I do a number of bird habitat conservation related projects. We do a lot of work engaging with community scientist volunteers, so training people out in the community to go out and do scientific surveys, gather information about birds for various reasons. So in 2021, we sort of started a bird monitoring program at Miller Park. So the kind of goals of this project, I'll just throw them up here, but basically, some of the community members were maybe a little concerned about the management that was going on at Miller, or maybe some of the past disturbances and how they were impacting the bird community in this lovely little green space right in the middle of the neighborhood. And there hadn't been any previous studies of birds in this area, so we didn't really know a whole lot about what was going on with the birds. So we started this project basically to just collect some baseline information about the birds, measure any potential changes over time, and maybe be able to provide some, recommendations, things that, the city who's managing the park could do to make it better for birds, but also, the surrounding community. It's really like right in the middle of the neighborhood. To do this, really briefly, we have 3 different survey types that we do depending on the time of year. So we have our breeding season point count survey. So that basically means that we distributed some sampling points throughout the park, and we have people visit those points during the breeding season, which is spring and summer, and do like 6-minute counts to document every single bird that's in that area. So we train volunteers to go out and do this. And then during the non-breeding season, which is now, we're in fall migration right now, we go out at least once a month and walk a transect through the site, kind of walk through the site as a group and document all of the birds that are there. We're also interested in owls. Miller does have some owls, and so during the kind of owl active breeding season, when they start singing in February and early spring, we also go out to do some owls. So quickly, and we'll be kind of compiling all of the information for the year after the year ends and producing a report, which I can send to Jan and hopefully get it out into the community. So we'll have a lot more information, but I just wanted to share a few things from this year, the third year that we've been doing this. So we regularly detect about 40 to 50 species that are using Miller regularly throughout the year. Yeah. And then with our data and also other birders just going into the park using the eBird, you might be familiar, just logging their birding trips. It looks like there are around 90 species that have, in one way or another, used the park in the past 3 to 4 years. And some of that includes some birds that just are flying through the area, maybe they're migrating, they see a good spot, come down, eat a little bit, and head out. It's not like they're necessarily relying on the park, but it is supporting a lot of birds. And then we've had a couple of new birds this year. So things that we haven't detected over the past few years that we've been there, including a Cassin's finch, which is a finch that is usually up in pretty high elevation that maybe has dropped down for really snowy, early part of the year, winter and spring. And then red-named sapsucker too. So kind of some interesting findings. We're still detecting new birds out there. Okay, so I'll just wrap up with kind of the main thing that I wanted to bring to this group, which is just that we are volunteer-based and we would love to get you all, involved and coming out with us and, getting out to Miller and seeing the birds. And so we have some opportunities for you all. So for one, as I mentioned, the non-breeding season. So we're out there once a month doing our non-breeding surveys, which is basically a bird walk. We welcome anyone, no matter the skill level. We always have a Tracy Aviary staff member who can identify all of the birds, kind of leading the way, taking down the data. And then we welcome anyone else to come out to be an extra set of eyes and ears, and find the birds. So to sign up for those, I should say, so we're doing this on the last Wednesday of the month, every month at 7:20 a.m. Right now, we shift depending on when sunrise is, but that's when it is right now. We've got a sign-up sheet through the Tracy Aviary Conservation website, which I can bring up and maybe it can be sent out to you all. And then we're thinking about if it would be of interest, we could do some workshops about bird-friendly practices and people, gardening and things that you could do at your home, which will help out birds a lot that are using the park. And then if you all get really excited about birds, you can train to do our breeding season surveys to go out and do those individual point counts. So that's all available. I think I just have, contact info. This is the lazuli bunting. Thanks for asking. One of my favorite birds. They're really beautiful and they are at Miller. So yeah.
I just wonder, I think I may have run into some of your observers.
Yeah.
And people have been concerned in the bird rescue specifically that the month that it doesn't drink water has a really negative effect on its ability to be rescued for birds.
Yep.
Is that a conversation you guys have at any level with anyone who has influence on whether there's water there or not water there?
We absolutely report that to the city. That's very true. Like, in order for birds to use that area, I mean, it's a riparian area. Birds are relying on the water and the surrounding vegetation that relies on that water. So we've certainly brought that up. From my understanding, the issue with water rights, is hard to address. So we have a year with lots of water, we get water coming through, but water rights are really complicated in the West, and sometimes we don't have that ability, but yeah.
I've heard from some experts that there might be old water information.
Okay.
It could be tracked down by any organization with the.
Okay,
So that
yeah,
would be another thing to add.
that's a
Could
great.
I just fill in really quickly? It's Mount Olivet. Their water rights go back to the 1880s or something like that. And Congress. I mean, it was an act of Congress, and
The board part's hard to change.
and I've talked with Laura Griefer, who is head of public utilities, very accessible, easy to have a conversation with. We've gone back and forth on this, and until now, all of it budgets, because they get water for the cemetery from Immigration Creek and Red Butte Creek. Both.
Well, their right is out of immigration, it's transferred over. This is-
Well, but they take from.
Well, yeah, they take our water as well.
Anyway, we'd love to have a solution, and Laura would like to have a solution as well. She's even offered, to switch off city water from our creek water, and they've said no.
The latest is absolutely what you're just saying. We've been trying to, have some accommodations there, so we have more water, they just haven't,
How do we do it? I don't think it's a picture.
What happened
For
to
their-
the water right that we were awarded from the Chevron oil spill negotiation?
I don't know if we can answer that here,
I
but
didn't know.
we just put all of this on hold a little bit because we wanna, we
Real
wanna-
quick, there is a viable solution, if we could create a reservoir. In fact, when John Mazer was the director of engineering, he proposed this more as a flood control thing, but it could also be a permanent and perpetual source of water in Miller Park. If we put a reservoir in Sunnyside Park, and bleeded it off, when Mount Olivet takes all of it. So,
Well, Cooper is not gonna be able.
I know, I'm just saying there is a more alternative, than just fighting about water.
About that city. Let's see, and one last question, then we want to get to Debbie.
Okay.
We have, here's in our neighborhood, and that's, so there's a bird.
Yes.
Try to protect it.
Yep, yeah, so probably you have a lot of Cooper's hawk, my favorite hawk is my name, but yeah. Cooper's hawk, red-tailed hawk, and then we back to the hawk in Miller, which is really cool. So the best thing.
Reach out, so they're.
And screech owl, yeah, there's western screech owl. The best thing we can do for raptors is not use poison on, rodent control, basically, that really is so hard. So that'll be the main thing, and then.
so they catch rodent.
Yeah, the exhibitors, the Cooper hawk are.
I've noticed the rodent, the squirrel and rat population is pretty decreased.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you've got good owls and things, they'll take out. Anyway,
Thank you, we
my
always
contact
enjoy
information.
having you. Okay, the last Wednesday is September 27th. If you're all early in the morning, let's go look at birds.
Yeah.
And Cooper is really excited about maybe starting some fun projects. And I know if we get our kids involved in the community, I think it'd be fabulous. Debbie Ehrman patiently, waiting for us, and we're so pleased. We've had 3 stars in a row here, and Debbie is our 3rd star. Actually, we don't forget our government people stars, but, we're so pleased. Executive interim director, I don't know if I got your title right or wrong, please interim. Okay, Debbie has just been a warrior and, keeping our library system intact and on point. And we're so pleased that she could be here. The special interest, I think, has been the faith for what's going to happen to the Anderson Footer Library. She's going to speak to that, as well as you may have some other surprises and program information that you want to share. We've got Gordon Bradbury, who is here, and I don't know if we lost Paul. Paul's over there, so you've got a great team. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Thank you for inviting us today. And I did want to mention to Cooper that one of our librarians, Lisa Jacobson, sits on the education board of the Tracy. So anyway, we are here today to talk a little bit. I know there's interest as to like what might happen with the future of Anderson Foothills Library. And so we just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the work that we've been doing and then kind of where we're headed. So Gordon is our facilities and IT director, and then of course Paul is here at Anderson Foothills Library. So this is a pretty short slideshow, but we just wanted to give you some highlights and let you know. So the Anderson Foothills, the library put together a library facilities plan, which Dan has heard about over the years, and we finished that a couple of years back. And we are now trying to think what's our next step with that plan. And it's it's kind of an aspirational plan, but then we also look specifically at all of our locations, and, we worked with a local architect firm and another consultant who worked on that. We did some community workshops on it. Our next step now is to start moving into community engagement, and we did put money in our fiscal year 24 budget to start a community engagement program. And we are specifically looking at Anderson Foothill, Main Library, Fall Park, and then to create a West Side plan. So the West Side branches include Day Riverside, Glendale, and Chapman branch, which is well over 115 years. But the plan really looked at all of our buildings and all of our facilities. And some of it's going to include, you know, how we can modernize it, what's the community impact, what's the future growth. And then we do need to have some funding in place for reconstruction, remodel, or building facilities in our identified locations. Now we have two relatively new branches, which is Glendale branch and Marmalade branch, and they're like 9 and 8 years old. So they've been around, and then we just renovated, if you use the Bright Branch Library, we renovated that, and that opened 2 years ago after renovation due to the 100-year rainstorm we had that caused flooding at that location. So those we kind of put lower down on the list. We also identified some other sections of the city that don't have easy access to library services, such as the Fair Park area. While they might use our Day Riverside branch, it's still not easily accessed if you only have to use public transportation or you're walking or biking or something like that. So we just finished interviewing some firms to do our community engagement work. And we chose a firm that has a local presence in Salt Lake City, but it is more of a national firm. They're based out of Minneapolis. And they are going to be starting this community engagement that we hope to run through 23 and into probably end of June 2024. As Superintendent Grant mentioned, they're looking at construction for schools. For us to fund right now, our ballpark numbers are about $100 million in monies needed to implement our plan as it stands right now.
That's over a number of years.
Over a number of years, yeah, I mean, we can't do everything all at once, but again, there is funding that we need to determine how might we fund these projects. And that's part of the work that the team is going to be doing with us to kind of test out what has been done on the facilities plan, and then to also really engage with community, specifically with these locations that I mentioned. Anderson Foothill is one of our primary ones, to talk through like what would that look like with either, well, to be honest with you, we really think that Foothill needs to be a rebuild. So it's been here since 1985. It was the first place I worked. I worked here for 15 years. Raised my kids in this neighborhood, close to the neighborhood, Heights Elementary. And so we do know that it's gone through a couple renovations, but it's not really meeting right now.
You can figure it out.
So part of our, we kind of call our library facilities plan, is that we kind of focus it on a civic infrastructure model. And so what we're thinking about is realigning the city library's current locations to optimize and implement our library strategic plan for 21st century library service. And we know that it's changed a lot. We all know it. The internet's come on board, just how people work. COVID kind of taught us all how that's changed. We have lots of people who are coming into our spaces now who are working from home, but they want to kind of get away from their home space and just be in another space and work. I know Paul has told us we've got loads of people who need more community meeting room space. That we have people coming after school who need tutoring for their children, or they want to have small meetings with whatever community group they might be working with. So we know and it's not just at Foothill, we're seeing this everywhere. And that's one thing we did was Sprague when we did our renovations there, was to really consider, we had, if you recall, it was just like a big meeting room. And there are always people like in little corners trying to meet. And so we tried to really maximize our ability to offer meeting room space. And we can never probably meet the total demand for it, but it's certainly something that we see at all of our locations. We want to reintegrate into make sure that our services and spaces will expand as we kind of look at ourselves as a values-driven economic development partner aligned with Salt Lake City growth. And so there's been conversations about when they you know, there's that Rocky Mountain Power site, in the Fair Park area. Where might we have a small presence potentially there? It's not something that's high on our list right now, but we're certainly trying to keep ourselves at the forefront of thinking about how libraries, impact neighborhoods and how important they are to neighborhoods and for people to have easy access. And then we're really looking at our places, policies, programs, and practices to build community connection. And I think we do a pretty good job of that right now, but we're trying to kind of up our game there and foster equitable and inclusive communities. You know, we often hear here in Salt Lake City, if you live here long enough, you know that West Side sometimes feels that they get the short end of the stick with things. And so it's just that to also be aware of what those community needs are and how we can serve it. And honestly, each branch we're finding in each neighborhood, of course, has different needs. We're just touring over at Day Riverside today in the Rose Park neighborhood. And I mean, that neighborhood's changing so much from where it was like 25, 30 years ago. There's a lot of diversity of people there. It's gentrifying a bit, but you're also getting in large immigrant populations as well as the folks who've been there for a while from the different Pacific Islander communities, from Latinx communities. So again, there's always a juggling act to figure out what demographics are and how they're changing. And as the city's growing and neighborhoods such as Poplar Grove around Chapman are kind of hard to predict where that's going, but it's all things we kind of have to consider as we're working on our plan for the library development into the next 20 years or so. And then we really want to view ourselves, the public libraries, and this is kind of very aspirational, but an embodiment of a collective vision of the American dream. These are some words I took from our strategic our library facilities plan. And we really want to make sure that we are providing those places and programs where people can engage in pursuit. Now, a lot of it is happiness. If you come to any of the programs here, we have a lot of programs that I think bring happiness to our young families and to family programming. Paul has said that many times, well, they do Chinese New Year here, and so that's been a really important way to just bring people together and learn about each other. And then we're trying to tap into and build on the community civic infrastructure as it continues to grow and change. We're building a foundation for generating community trust and cooperation. I think that's important, that we all know that we're working together in the city. So that's what we're hoping is a world-class library system, and we'd like to think for ourselves at least, you know, that's our aspiration. If we're moving into that category, how we can make sure that that's an important piece of what we do and how much that can help us just meet the needs of our communities in general. So I'm going to turn over to Paul, but we can take questions, and Gordon can talk a little bit more about what we're doing with the work on that facilities plan after Paul talks about what's going on in Anderson Foothill right now.
Do we still have time?
Yeah. Go ahead, just hold over.
So I just wanted to just really quickly talk about a few things with Foothill. Like I said, Foothill is really your neighborhood library, and it is such a pleasure to work at Foothill and to be embraced by the community. And we've had staff members who talk about this community as being the power users. They know what the library offers and they take advantage of what it offers, and it's just an honor to serve the community. I wanted to highlight a few things. We just finished our Super Summer Challenge, and it was a really successful summer. We had, as a system, 10,760 people sign up. Foothill had 2,459, so that was 23% of the system-wide participation came just from this branch, which that's nothing new. Foothill's always heavily engaged. So, and we lead the system in terms of pre-reader participation, kid participation. This year we were second only to Maine in terms of teen and adult participation. So we really do have active users. Our teen squad, picture from our teen squad celebration, we had 22 teen volunteers help us this summer, and it's only because of our teen squad that we are able to meet the needs of the high demand. But we love the teens. They are very dedicated. They're highly invested in the library. Claire, our wonderful teen librarian, talks about we are helping those future leaders and shaping those future leaders through the library. So that's exciting to be a part of that. Community outreach, we're going to be shortly starting up outreaches at our 5 local elementary schools. We have the 2 local middle schools. Highland is our local high school. We're getting ready to start our pre-K outreaches. We also do 3 regular outreaches at local senior centers, so the Ridge, the In-Between, and the Their Adapt Home. We also have some annual donation drives that we help with. So the Giving Tree, which is for the Highland High Food Pantry. the VA Medical Center Food Pantry Drive that we just recently started that partnership. And we're also, our Friends of the Library is starting up a free little library program at the university student apartments, which are now gonna be called the Sunnyside Apartments.
Yeah.
But, we're starting that up too, so there will be, books being sent to the new apartments and for all of those families. So that's exciting to get that. Upcoming programs I just wanted to highlight, so we always have our weekly story times and book babies. But this Saturday, the Saturday the 16th at 1 p.m., we have a Navy Band Northwest Woodwind Quartet that's going to be performing. They've already been performing at Maine this week, but they're going to come here on Saturday. They'll either be down here in the meeting room or out in the amphitheater, depending on the weather. We have a puppet show for the little ones on Monday the 18th at 2 p.m. We have a teen movie coming up in the beginning of October. We're going to show Mean Girls. And then on October 28th, there's going to be a big family fall list, so a big celebration for and then just we have some ongoing programs. We have the 50 book adult reading challenge that this is ongoing. So anybody who would like to just be encouraged to do reading throughout the year, throughout their lifetime, you can pick up one of these and start having your reading. And then we have our seed library upstairs. And then one service that is near and dear to me is our Hope to Go service. We started it a year before the pandemic based on the needs of this population, and it's still it's a great service. So if you have mobility issues, or if it's limited parking that day, and you just want to pick up your holds, or maybe you're a parent with 3 kids in the car seat, just park in one of those spaces, give us a call, and we run your home to you. Thank you.
Well, we have restaurant service too, and if you're gonna.
Maybe in the new book.
Paul, please go ahead, or I'm sorry, not Paul, Gordon, please go ahead.
Yeah. So just a couple of more specifics. So Debbie talked about, we've got Glendale, Marmalade, and Sprague are all relatively new, Sprague remodeled, but that leaves the 4 buildings. After that, Maine is the next newest building, and it's now over 20 years old and really getting long in the tooth. So this building's more than 30 years old, parts of it. And Sweet and Big Riverside are all getting very old too. So our facility plan went through each building and made some specific recommendations, like it's probably time to rebuild Anderson. It's time to really remodel the main library, top to bottom. And it's time to build a new library in Ballpark. But for this building, just some specifics, it really why we're considering rebuilding it. The building, it has some issues structurally with the building. There's a lot of settling going on, and we have plans to be able to arrest it. We can do that. But as a service point, this is our second busiest branch. After Maine.
Yeah.
This is our busiest branch. Yeah. Yeah.
And
So-
1985.
And it's just not big enough. It's not big enough. It's not configured very well for the services. We don't have enough meeting rooms, parking's atrocious. There's a whole host of reasons that we really need to consider kind of rebuilding this building. Right now, our intent would be to do it right here on this lot. So we don't want to move. We feel like we love it right here in this neighborhood. It's very walkable. So our plan, as Debbie mentioned, we just interviewed and made an award to a company who will be this fall now starting to engage with you guys. I'm sure we'll be coming back to this meeting in the future to talk about ideas for this building. We'll be doing some public outreach, we'll be doing focus groups, we'll be doing surveys, we'll be pulling community members together to really talk about what do we need. And so our timeline is going to be largely dependent on the funding and how we go about that. But I think our goal is really to have a solid plan and hopefully be working on this in the next 4 years or so. So that's really where we want to get.
Any questions? Go ahead, James.
I am so excited about this. I'm also a little torn. I'm also very torn. My kids are super users, power users. Paul knows my wife and kids, so I have 3 of them up there actually, and they haven't come down and bothered me yet.
The thing that I love about it is, I mean, again, we all realize that there's some inadequacies here, right? Like parking, meeting rooms. And I know there's gonna be focus groups and plenty of time for input. You hit the nail on the head. It's so ingrained in the community right now. Like, they walked here, I biked here with my kids. My kids, when they have a hole, they come down themselves and can check it out. And I would just hope that there's a balance between a new updated facility and feeling a part of the neighborhood, right? Like a new beautiful facility that's surrounded in a sea of parking it would go against, I think, the spirit of something like Foothill. Oh, yeah. And so as we talk about the huge barrier of Sunnyside Avenue, right? Like having my kids cross that just is scary to me. Not that it can't be done.
I live on the Sunnyside.
Yeah. And so will that decrease their ability to autonomously come and enjoy the library? So I'm not saying that's an insurmountable issue, but I would love to look at how we find that balance between new and updated facility and still a place that people can feel so comfortable and safe to walk to and to bike.
Yes, I think we feel really.
We'll get an answer and then we'll talk to you.
Real strongly about that this is right in the community, it's very walkable. I know people who might live above Foothill and other locations, it's tougher, but this really serves a lot of people. And we feel like, I mean, and let's be honest, what property is, there's not a lot of property available that we could afford, but there is anything available. And we like the fact that it's on a bus line. I mean, we get a lot of people who use this library for a long time. All these people are coming to the University of Utah, whether they live in Salt Lake or not. It's just a really great location with a reciprocal borrowing in the county library system. So, I mean, we personally feel like this is the best location, but part of the work that we need to do with community engagement is just like, we make sure and validate that. And so, your points are all well taken.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, and then, Mary raised her hand.
Jim, you and I are probably going to say the same thing. So I'm going to talk in a minute, but the Friends of Sunnyside Park is a newly formed group. We are fighting, and we'll talk about this, the expansion.
The library question.
I know, but it is about the library.
Okay, good.
If we could expand and improve Sunnyside Park and slow down traffic on Sunnyside, which they're doing on all these streets around us, could we not build you a much better, beautiful facility, lovely grounds, enough parking, and also allow people to feel safe to cross Sunnyside Park? I don't feel safe crossing to Sunnyside Park either, but we can make it safer. We can make it safer, and we can include this in Sunnyside Park as a community center, senior center.
This has been raised with us before, and I've tried to explain that we are not part of the county system. And so when you look at Mill Creek as an example,
City Park though, Sunnyside.
so there was a connection made to Steiner, and Steiner is run by the county. And the example that was given to me was similar to Mill Creek, and actually I used to live in the neighborhood, I now live over in the area. But, that was a joint effort between the county library system, their county recreation system, and senior services. So, I mean, this is part of the community engagement work, but, again, and we need to do site analysis as well here. So I can't give you an answer until we get our work done, and then we'll know better what the community is all for. That's really important.
Jim, last question.
Yeah, if we are successful in, building a senior center, would you do an auxiliary kind of reading room or something like that that would be part of Anderson? Is that a possibility? That's not my real question.
I don't know. Because
My real question has to do with the main library. You have this love-hate relationship with with Salt Lake City Parks in terms of maintenance of the grounds. I think it's maybe a hate relationship, I don't know. But anyway, I do the bocce demonstration for Living Traditions, and every year it gets progressively worse. And not even a blade of grass there this year, and they didn't mow it. And I'm not gonna do bocce if it gets any worse. I can't, we can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the library maintenance.
Yeah.
it's the city.
Unfortunately, the library, we're only responsible for building.
For the building.
That's all we
Would
control.
you prefer to have your own, people doing it?
We do have our own people
No, I
taking
mean,
care of the building.
grounds.
The grounds, that's the big, the city takes care of the ground. However, city did create a budget this year and they are putting together a committee to build on a study that was done in 2017 about how to better activate and use Library Square. So they've allocated some substantial money this year and we're participating as part of that committee and we're gonna be much more involved than I think we were in the past in terms of talking about Library Square.
Well, hopefully you're not gonna buy any more favors from Moshe Sock.
Yeah, okay, we really appreciate what you have said to us. We're looking forward to the community engagement. We'll definitely have you come back. I just want to add a note of appreciation for your staff here. Paul has always been gracious. And he rolls up his sleeves and starts putting out the chairs and, you know, it's like another member of our team and so helpful. We have you back. Eric, we need to pull this down so we've got Dan and Hannah, our city councilman, our mayor liaison, and then we'll have Detective Fallis, who's been patiently waiting online. And I'll just have our three government stars be up. And then we'll finish with Mary.
Great, that's good. Okay, so a couple things that, last night, yeah, oh, yeah, sorry. That's right. I got it.
Yeah.
So it was great last night or this morning at 12:44, I got a email from Lynn Pershing about,
Right, huh?
yeah, about the local historic district. You're probably all aware of that, and then no support. Very, very disappointing. I had a conversation with my staff, the city council side of the house, and and then I got your email about getting the mayor. I told them that at that point, so we can see if we can, what we can do with the mayor and the attorney on that. It isn't. I was kind of shocked. I was and disappointed in that vote. So we still have to go through the balloting of the area, and then it comes back to us. But we'll have some conversations. I don't know. Did you get a response from?
I heard a great flurry in City Hall on this issue today.
Okay.
Yeah, I got calls and emails from people I've never heard from almost. I mean,
Oh, did you?
yeah, I was actually shocked to see the reaction.
Yeah. So let's go.
All negative.
So it was the
Back up a little bit.
We're lost. Yeah. Apologize. I glossed over the subject. The local historic district in the Yokohama area, Laird Heights area, got 5-4 no support vote. So no support coming out of it. It still moves. It's just that the recommendation is no support for that. It goes now to back to the local community where they put a ballot on it, and then it will come to the city council at that point. Now, so we're gonna have a conversation with the mayor and the attorney's office on that. There's 2 other local historic districts that are moving through at the same process, just a few behind them. So
What was the reason for the decision?
I didn't hear, I didn't see a reason, I didn't see a reason. Yeah, I didn't get to that reason. I was engaged in a bunch of other things. I didn't see any reason behind it. And we usually, a lot of times it's like, we'll get that new channel. I just haven't seen that.
Well, it's not very encouraging for those person might want to start with.
So that, and then I'm giving you the bad news at this point. I'm disappointed, but that's everybody else. On the Sunnyside Park issues and stuff like that, I met with the county Martin Jensen yesterday. He's the county parks director, about the Steiners. And the city owns the land, county takes care of the operations of the Steiners. And we had Christian Riker on there, the conversation too. We talked about a master plan of how we want to see Steiners and how we want to see that area that we can refurbish Steiners. The county is looking at staff money in 25 or 26 to upgrade Steiners as it is now. Their function is just the building itself. They're not looking at to expand it. They're looking at upgrading the facility inside the bones of the building.
in the roof right now.
Yeah, yeah, right. We had a conversation with the city and the county doing that.
And the point is, for years on that.
Yeah, the second thing on top of that, and the city, we were having a conversation, like, let's look at a master plan on what we can do with that area in general. Just, not just the building, but other parts of that,
So I to participate in that.
we were just talking about having a master plan, so we had got to that point, because we were like, we need to have funding on doing the study and doing that portion of it. It was just, hey, let's do a master plan of this area, because the old master plan is 40 years old. On top of this,
No, it's 40 years.
yeah, on top of all this, Martin passed the word that the state, the governor's office has set aside $8 million to do some renovations, signers, if we win the Olympics. What that looks like, it's in an holding account if we win the Olympics. So that's all out there at this point. That was the conversation with Martin and Kristen. Kristen is taking the action on putting together the first, we gotta find funding to do the master planning of the signers.
So the master plan is going to help us get the Olympics. Is that the idea?
No, this is different from signers.
Questions afterwards.
Yeah, so this is just a master plan of signers. The Olympics is totally separate. They just set aside $8 million. If they win the Olympics, they're looking at putting another sheet. Yeah.
Another what?
Last thing.
Hold down and
Yeah.
8 o'clock.
Yeah, last thing I said. Another big,
Six months and finish.
big, thing we had, this morning, or this afternoon, we had a press conference on, I want to try to not use the words camping, but sanctioned shelters. Sanctioned shelters, because it's not, when we think of camping, we think of a tent. These are not tents. They're shelters. And the location is going to be, at Boston, the Intermodal Hub, 300 South, 600 West. There's a pretty empty lot there that we city owns, and we're gonna convert that area into a sanctioned shelter area for 25 units, and there's gonna be 2 people on those units, and they're mobile units. The state is purchasing the units because they're mobile, and the intent is after this winter is over, we move into phase 2, and the state takes those units and builds another, takes them to another location that's undecided at this point. I'm gonna back up a little bit. It took us a long time to get to this point because we couldn't find a place to put we had 2 locations up to about a week ago, and we said this is our location. It's gonna have security like we've done in other places. It's gonna have a provider. The state's gonna go out to get a provider RFP and or a provider, request a proposal on a provider at the end of October. And we're looking at opening it up on 1 November. We have it for 180 days, because we have to do what's called a temporary land use regulation, where we can temporarily put the zoning there for 180 days. That's the max. The reason why we want to delay that decision, because we have 180 days after that. So we're going to go all the way through the end of May. So we have 180 days, and that gives the state now this time to find a permanent, another location somewhere else, unknown, and probably larger. This is more like a pilot thought, 50 units, 25 units, but split in 2. They have 4 walls. They got a door, they got a lock, they got a bed, they got heating and electricity for the units. Right now, we're just confirming that they can withstand a Utah winter and snow.
And bathrooms.
Yeah. So bathrooms, they won't be in the unit, but there will be bathrooms provided there, resources there, wraparound service at that point. That was it. Just announced today at 2:30. So all subjects we have other. More.
Are these like FEMA trailers?
No. These are like, they haven't,
Nice news.
well, they haven't decided to sign up in the next couple of days because they gotta make sure it is, but there's some companies out there, it's like a pop-up. It
Yeah.
pops up and balls, but they have to look at, make sure that it can put in one of our winters.
But in Texas has the exact same model, but they are little wood frames.
Right.
They were
Which
pushing
probably,
out.
Yeah, they ask the same thing, but then they're modular, so that when they were done here, they were.
yeah, go and check Hannah, hey, and then we want to hear Detective Fallows and then Mary. And
Hi,
everybody out of here by 8 o'clock, we're gonna close the doors.
I'll be quick. I'm wearing a mask because I got over a cold. I'm getting over a cold, but if anyone can't hear me, let me know and I can pull it down. Thank you, Councilmember Dugan, for talking about the temporary shelter community. I do have a FAQ document for everyone. They're just over here on the table. Lots more information on here. The website is slc.gov/temporary shelter. It went live just today at 2 with the announcement. But there will be lots more information posted up there. Like as the units are selected, there will be specific images and description of the units. Also, apologies that I look so casual today. I was out canvassing the neighborhood around this area all day today. So that's why I look very casual, and the hat looks much better on than it does off, I assure you. Also, Jan already mentioned the traffic calming on 13th South and 21st East, but I do have flyers on that as well. This was a little image showing the traffic displacement while that's being done. And hopefully it will just take 1 week. So starting next Monday on the 18th. The plan is for that first block, just 22nd East to 21st East for 1 week. The following week would be 21st East to 19th East, and then the third week would be 19th East to 17th East. So hopefully there will be too many impacts on the neighborhood. Also, I know we haven't talked about that project in a while, but based on community feedback, the project has changed a bit. The speed humps or bumps are no longer, they are cushions now, which means that there's basically wheel wells in the middle for emergency vehicles to be able to get through smoother. There are some examples of these speed cushions. If anyone wants to go drive 6th East between 21st South and 27th South, those were just done a couple of weeks ago, and they're an example of what's going to be in on 13th South. They're nothing too drastic. The idea is that if you're going the speed limit, you won't have to slow down. They're just to make sure that folks are going the speed limit. Also, September is Idle Free Month, so I have a bunch of window decals there if anyone wants one for their car. We're also working with economic development to make sure that new businesses in the city get all of the idle free information and decals and support when they open up shop, so that hopefully their customers will not idle in the parking spots or in the drive-thru. Dr. Grant already mentioned the informational meetings on the school closures, but I did bring flyers from the district. They're just these green flyers over on the table. I think the closest meeting is at Hillside Middle School, not being considered for closure. The meeting is just at that school. I've had that confusion. Also, just with school starting this month, the mayor and the city council partnered to print some very large, well, not very large, normal sized yard signs that remind people to slow down now that school is in session. All of the elementary schools throughout Salt Lake City received some. You'll probably seen them as you've driven around. I know there's a bunch down by Uinta. But those are also able, we have a few at the city and county building and a few at the district building for pickup if anyone wants them for their yard. If you live in a particularly dangerous area and close to a school, maybe a strategically placed intersection where lots of people will see it. You can also stop by an elementary school and grab one because they should be able to get those out to community members as well. Lastly, VIP applications are due at the end of the month on September 30th. There is a workshop next Thursday, the 21st at the Sorensen Community Center from 3 to 5 p.m. If you have any questions about that process, or if you're interested but feeling anxious about the application, just let me know. The application should not be a huge barrier. We're not expecting anyone to be experts on anything city. So obviously you would be paired up with a city staffer to help you think more about your project. CIP, by the way, stands for Capital Improvements Program. So it's just anything that maintains or improves a city-owned asset, like a park or a street or a skateboard. One last thing, I have my community office hours for District 6 next Monday, September 18th, from 3 to 5 p.m. at Davis Park, which is the park with the quail statues on 20th East. Yeah. So yeah, stop by and chat. Tell your neighbors I'll be there to talk to anyone walking by.
Thank you, Hannah.
Yeah.
Can you hear us, Detective Fallows? Are you on, have you unmuted yourself?
Yep, I'm here. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah,
Awesome. Good to be here with y'all tonight.
speak up as loud as you can.
I will. I'll try and get a little bit closer here. Sorry about that. So I have put some links into the chat for those that are online. I'm Detective Sam Fallows. I'm the community liaison detective for District 6. And happy to be here with you all tonight. I just want to go over a couple of highlights before we get into the crime stats, and then I'll take any questions that anybody has. And if anybody has any questions on the chat, or online, just put them in the chat for me if you would. So I just want to, I know we've gone over it before, but just as a reminder to everyone, the SLC mobile app, which we've talked about, is you download that from the App Store, and that is for non-criminal issues only. So, if there's a concern regarding homelessness for like a camp that's popping up, or if you have a down stop sign in your neighborhood, if you want to have the motor squad come out to your neighborhood and do a speed enforcement, there's a speed enforcement request you can put in. But it is for non-criminal issues. We have been getting kind of like some people trying to report like thefts or suspicious activity for like possibly like drug dealing, things like that on the app. So that's not what it's for. Those things you'll want to call into our dispatch for. If there is something that happened, maybe like a theft or something like that occurred overnight, and there's no suspect information, like no real videos or anything like that, you can file that online, but that's through slcpd.com. So that's kind of the difference. Just wanted to highlight that because there has been a little bit of confusion with some of the neighborhoods. So, and then I know that there has been kind of an uptick, it seems like, in suspicious people kind of in people's yards or trying to like get into doors, things like that. I believe that the police were called on a couple of those different ones, and kudos on that. Like, if you see something suspicious, just call us immediately. And if someone's like actively trying to open a door, you can call 911. Like, that's an in progress thing that they're trying to break in, right? So you can call 911 on that, let them know what's happened, give the best description you possibly can. What they were last seen wearing, the last direction they were last seen going, that kind of stuff. If there's a vehicle and you can safely like get a picture of the plate or something like that, that always helps us in those types of cases. So just wanted to highlight those two things. Before I move on, is there any questions about either of those two subjects?
We've got maybe 1 minute.
Okay, I'll move on. So for the month of August, we had 16 crimes reported. The top ones were larceny, burglary, and vandalism. Just want to remind everyone, just please put away your valuables, lock up your vehicles, turn on your lights at night. That's going to be very helpful. And that'll help cut down on some of that. And again, if you see something suspicious, then please call us.
Great, thank you, and I will be in touch, because there's a lot of things going on in August. I posted them in the newsletter, and, yeah, there were some creepy guys. Trying to break into a lot of our homes, so.
Sure.
Mary, you've got maybe a minute or two.
Yeah, 4 minutes.
No, we have to be out of here.
All right. So my name is Mary O'Connell. I live on Sunnyside with my lovely husband, Clete, right across from Sunnyside Park. We started a group with other neighbors that's called the Friends of Sunnyside Park. And the reason that we started this is because in the April meeting, late April, we heard from the University of Utah their plan to take their practice stadium and turn it into a full-blown collegiate stadium. We point blank in that meeting asked them, how much more property are you going to take from the green space of a public park? They would not answer our question. Other members of this community council have sat in a meeting with the development director of the university, and they have heard exactly what the university wants, and Jan was there, what the university wants to do with that property. They, and I'm just repeating what I've heard, they've talked about connecting a road that comes off of Jim, what's the name of the road that goes through the park?
What is that?
And they want to connect
Valdez
Way on the north side behind the stadium onto Valdez, which takes you in part of the edge to Guardsman Way, right? So they want a road to go east to west. They would like to build a parking structure. To make it a collegiate stadium, their wall has to be so much further out than where it is. It has to be 30 or 40 feet high to avoid them hitting more home runs in the altitude. Our air makes the ball go farther. There are giant sequoia trees that are just south of where that park is, where their stadium is right now. We absolutely, the Friends of Sunnyside Park, do not want to lose 1 inch of that park. And Kristen Riker emailed me and said, I can't think of the exact words, but I assure you that Mayor Mendenhall is working with the university to only make that park additive to your neighborhood. There is nothing additive about more cars, more pollution, less green grass, less trees that are helping with carbon emissions when they're gone. The other thing is the university informed us the reason that they cannot use the middle of the university where their softball field is, where their soccer field is because the president of the university currently wants to increase their student population by 10 to 12,000 people.
They're turning the lights off.
Okay, and then they told us that they would not allow them to have cars. You come to the University of Utah to enjoy Utah. Bottom line, we do not want to lose 1 inch of that park. We have a petition. There were 25 different zip codes that I got from the members using that park Saturday and Sunday. 25 different zip codes. That is not just our park.
So we're gonna wrap up, the petition's over there, thank you, Mary, we'll have more discussion.
For petition with a few more signatures.
If I can end it.
Sounds good, yeah.